We're good.
Okay, so the Gemara, I'd like to speak about the Gemara on Yud Beis and Yud Beis, primarily, but let's just, in order to just be mashlim, let's just finish up the Gemara. The Gemara says a few different halachas about Ibra Hashana that are important, so we'll try to run through them quickly. Tana Rabbanan, it's in the middle of the daf on Yud Beis and Yud Aleph. It's about 19 lines up from the bottom. Tana Rabban in the middle of the line. Ein ma'adrin shana lo mishana lechaverta, v'lo yishalosh shana mzu achar zu. You can't do Ibra Hashana from 1 year to the next. So what does that mean, lo mishana lechaverta? Rashi says, really, if not, this year doesn't really need the Ibra, but next year is going to be the problematic year. But you know, once we're around this year and we have the opportunity, let's just be ma'aber this year to take care of next year's potential issue. You can't do it. You have to deal with every year on its own. I was just thinking, by the way, that this halacha fits very well with the mahalach that we explained last year. That once Ibra Hashana is a halacha in the shana, and you're not only adding a month, but you're transforming the year, so then it has to be, like we said, just like you can't be ma'aber the shana before Rosh Hashanah, so it also has to be in the shana that needs the ibr. But to now say, oh, there's going to be a cheshbon next year that's going to need an extra month, that's not right, because this is not the shana that the chalais and the transformation is really shaykh to. So it could be this is a raya. This is very smooth according to that approach, that Ibra Hashana is a transformation in the year, not just an addition of the month, and therefore it's not Mishana L'Chaver. You can't just say, I foresee in the future that there's going to be a problem, so let me take care of it now. The only way Ibra Hashana works is if that year is nitan to be transformed, and not for future is what.
Which means we count Tishrei to Tishrei, not Nisan to Nisan, which was
Yeah, exactly. We count Tishrei to Tishrei. Yeah. Ein ma'abnes hashana lo mishana lecharta v'lo shalosh shanim zu achar zu. And then you also can't be ma'aber 3 years in a row. There's two pshatim in the Gemara over here. Rashi has two lishnas. Either you can't be ma'aber 3 years in a row, or you can't even be ma'ayin for 3 years weiter at one shot. Well, the reason why you couldn't be ma'aber for 3 years in a row is because then the whole schedule is going to be totally off if you're going to have so many Ibra Hashanas right after the other. So the Gemara questions. The Gemara says, Amar Reb Shimon Ma'aser Rabbi Akiva sheyechavush bebeis ha'asurim. This is a story that the Gemara that we had already quoted in Taisvis. This was the raya that you could have Ibra Hashana b'di'eved in Chutz La'aretz if lo hiniach gadol kamoso b'Eretz Yisrael. Since Rabbi Akiva was in jail and there wasn't anyone as great as Rabbi Akiva in Eretz Yisrael, so therefore Tosfos wanted to bring a raya. That's when you can have Ibra Hashana in Eretz Yisrael, because the term Eretz Yisrael, when it comes to Ibra Hashana, doesn't mean classic Eretz Yisrael, it just means representation of Am Yisrael. So what happened? He was chavish b'beis ha'asurim v'ibra shalosh shanam zu achar zu, and they were ma'aber 3 years one after the other. Amru lo misham raya. So you see, says Rabbi Shimon, you see that you can't be ma'aber one after the other. Says the Gemara, misham raya. No, I can understand that story differently. Misham raya bezdin yashvu kavo achas bizmana. No, either it wasn't that they were ma'aber 3 years in a row. It was bezdin afterwards being ma'aber different times. Each one bizmana, they just had Rabbi Akiva help them in the calculation prior, but afterwards they went home, and when the years were appropriate, they decided when to do it. Or the other pshat was bezdin was ma'ayin in each year when it came about, and they weren't only somech on Rabbi Akiva's initial cheshbon. Good? So those are two halachas that are important to keep in mind for Ibra Hashana. Tana Rabbanan, ein ma'aber nes Hashana lo b'shvius. You can't make an Ibra Hashana, right, in shvius. Just like we had restrictions on the top of the daf that you can't make an Ibra Hashana during a famine year, so too you can't make an Ibra Hashana during shvius. Below b'motzei shvius, and not only during shvius, but also not in motzei shvius, because that's going to affect the crops, that it's going to make it more difficult for Am Yisrael with the chadash, because you're extending chadash. Emas harigil la'aber. So when was the normal time to be ma'aber? Erev Shvius, it's the year before Shvius. So the Gemara says, but there were Tanoim that held that you can even be ma'aber on Motzei Shvius. What's their machlekes? So the Gemara says their machlekes has entirely different topic, which is a fascinating independent topic. Uplukta dahani tanoi, and it's a machlekes the following issue. Desanya, ein mevin yerek michutz la'aretz. Rabosenu hitiru. So the Gemara says, machlekes tanoim, are you allowed to bring? This was before customs, and they would stop you because of political reasons and because of diseases that would come in. Bezdin would stop you, according to some Tanoim, from bringing produce into Eretz Yisrael. Why? What's the chashash? My benayu, what's their machlekes? Amar Rabbi Yirmiyah chosheshin lugushein ika benayu. We're worried about the earth. You know when you have like a pot of plants, so you have some earth around it that you're going to carry with it. So now the Tumah from Eretz Amim is going to be carried into Eretz Yisrael. So that's the machlekes. Are you choishish for that or are you not? Sheva yami imo gush Eretz Amim, and that's going to cause Tumah be'oil, Rashi says. And it's going to be metame all of the things in Eretz Yisrael. Good. Tonight's sugya. Tana Rabbanim. Bottom of the daf. Ein ma'abrnas hashana mipnei atumah. Rabbi Yehuda Omer ma'abri. What happens if Klal Yisrael was tameh? Is that a reason to push off and to make sure that we could do Korban Pesach with Nisan b'tara, because right now Am Yisrael is b'toma, or not? So the Gemara says no. Tumah is not a sufficient reason to be ma'aber Shoshana. Rabbi Yehuda Omer ma'abrin. Rabbi Yehuda says no. It is a sufficient to be ma'aber. Why? Rabbi Yehuda says, Maisa b'Chizkiya Melech Yehuda. There was a story with Chizkiya Melech Yehuda, she'ibras hashana mipnei atumah, that he was ma'aber because of the tumah. What was the tumah? Rashi says mipnei atumah. Kigoin shahaya nasi chaylev amdu lamos erev Pesach. I'm sorry, that's Rashi. That's Rashi's cases. Sorry, the next Rashi. She'ibras hashana mipnei atumah. The second to last Rashi on the daf. Shenitmu b'mei achaz aviv. Chizkiya Melech's father was Achaz, and he was a Rasha. And he convinced all of Am Yisrael to be involved with Avodah Zarah. So Chizkiya got everyone to do tshuva, but he realized everyone has been involved with Avodah Zarah up until now. Shnitmu be'achaz aviv me'avodah Zarah shelo chashul l'Torah v'yu Chizkiya machzirin l'mutov v'yada shelo yaspiku kulon lavav litar ad ha'pesach v'ibra hashana. And he knew that we wouldn't, since everyone was tameh. I think the Yad Ramah says it's not only that everyone was tameh, because the truth is you really have at least 2 weeks to be matar everyone, so you should be able to be matar. So the Yad Ramah asks, so why weren't they able to pull it off? So he says there that they also had to be matar the Beis HaMikdash again, kind of like the story of Hanukkah. It wasn't a simple story over there, and they weren't going to make the deadline by Pesach to be able to be makar the Pesach, and they would all be tameh. Why are they tameh? Why are they tameh? So Taisus explains, Taisus quotes Rashi, that what? That the Gemara tells us in the bottom Taisus, because the halacha is, not only is Avodah Zarah aser to be oived, but it taka creates tumah. And therefore, all of even though it's only a tumah d'Rabbanan, that would be a sufficient reason that he thought Chizkiya to push off Pesach and to be ba'aras Hashana. So Taisa says, "Afagav the tumas avodah zarah d'Rabbanan me'osa shah shema gazra oleh." He says no, but from that time the gzeira already existed. It was in existence. The Rabbanan already made the gzeira, so tumas avodah zarah was already a halachic reality. But then Tosfos quotes another interpretation of Yerushalmi Amar, the Gilgaso shel Aroina Yavusi Matzah Tachas HaMizbeach. No, there was a skull of Arona Yavusi that was metame, all of the Kohanim or all of Am Yisrael, whoever was involved in the Beis HaMikdash, and that was the reason that everyone was tameh, and therefore Chizkiya Melech intuitively thought, wait, we can't do the Korban Pesach when everyone's tameh, and therefore he was Marbis Hashana. And what does the Gemara say? Bikesh racham malatzmo, he had to ask mechila because he made a mistake. He marbis ha'am Rabbis me Ephraim Nashi Yisachar Zvun lo hitaru ki ochlu es haPesach below kakosov ki ispalu Chizkiyo aleim lemor Hashem atov yichaper ba'ad. So Chizkiyo made a mistake, and Chizkiyo had to daven for his mistake that he made, that he caused people to eat the carbon Pesach shelo kakosov in the not right month, because it really was supposed to be Pesach, and they were supposed to not be Ma'aber for that reason, and because he was Ma'aber, they ate the Pesach in the wrong month. Atem afilu shoygegin, excellent, this is what I wanted to hear. So that is the Ran's question on our Gemara, and we shouldn't be surprised that it's the Ran's question on our Gemara, because the Ran is the one who we've consistently been quoting, that the Ran, the Baal Minchas Chinuch in Rishonim, is the one who holds Atem afilu shoygegin even applies to what? Ibra Shana. Who's smiling at this Gemara? The Tzlach. The Tzlach smiling at this Gemara. The Tzlach says, this is my Raya. I think the Tzlach might even quote this as a Raya. I don't even remember. But this is my Raya, says the Tzlach. That it's not Atem afilu shoygegin. So the Ran says, you're right. Really, Atem afilu shoygegin should have applied. But says the Ran, Chachamim made a chizik not to play around with the halacha of Tumah, that if Tumah really, if Karban Pesach is supposed to be Hutra v'Tumah for whatever reason that we're going to see in next second, we didn't explain why. So then, what's going to happen? If you're going to be Ma'amar Sashana, people are going to question the rabbis and the halachic system. You're telling me on the one hand that what? Tumah overrides, and we're allowed to be makriv in a situation of Tumah for whatever halacha reason. We're going to talk about Tumah T'chui B'tzir, Tumah Chutz B'tzibor, and now you're telling me you're Ma'amar Sashana, you're trying to avoid it? Says the Ran, there's no Ibra Shana here. Even Atem afilu shoygegin will not apply, because now people are going to think that the halachic system's a joke. So therefore, in order to be mechazik the halachic system, so therefore we limited Atem afilu shoygegin, but the kasha is a kasha. Good.
I can say this is a completely unrelated reason.
What do you mean it's an unrelated reason?
All the reasons that we gave until now are related to the actual year, not because of some external thing like Tumah and Pesach.
What does it mean, year?
On the seasons or Kufa.
What do you mean? Well, you have bridges that collapse.
Those were supplementary reasons.
No. They were not supplementary reason. The Gozalos was supplementary reason. Those were real reasons. Those are real reasons. That's the Ran's Raya. Atem afilu shoygegin applies, because that the Gemara says that works. Good. There's three brises. Okay. So the Gemara says, Reb Shimon Omer imipnei atuma ibrua miuberes. No. That can't be the pshat in the pasuk of Chizkiah that he had to ask Mechila because he was ma'aber shaloi kedin. Why? Why can't that be? Because I hold, says Rabbi Shimon, if you're taka ma'aber, mipnei atuma, what's the halacha? Miuberes. It's kedin. It's good. Elos, so therefore Rabbi Shimon has to own up to his shita. And when they ma'bikesh rachim malatzo, she'ein ma'aber mela adar, whoever nisan b'nisan. No, because you're really supposed to be ma'aber adar, and he was ma'aber the wrong month. Good. Reb Shimon ben Yehuda, a third opinion, Mishum Reb Shimon, mipnei shehisi es Yisrael lasos pesach sheni. No. You know what his mistake was? A totally different mistake. What was his mistake? He didn't tell them, he told them, don't do the Pesach now. I'm not going to be ma'aber the year, but you know what? All of you are going to be Yosef Pesach Sheni. What's the problem with that? The Gemara in Pesachim has a drasha. Yochid nidches lepesach sheni. Ve'ein tzibur nidches lepesach sheni. Yochid is nidches. That's why I once gave a shir in Shomer Torah a few years ago, whether or not even bechlal, we, bizman hazeh, if the Mashiach came, if we would even have a Pesach Sheni. Because the tzibur can't be nidches to a Pesach Sheni. So that's a question, I think I gave it on Pesach Sheni, if the Mashiach would come on, but right before Pesach Sheni, so would we have a din to be makriv, because we're all at tzibur, so maybe the din of Yachid ve'en tzibur Pesach Sheni. There's a fascinating question of the Rashash on this Gemara, that if you read on in the Psukim of Divrei Hayamim, it says there that they ate matzahs for 7 days. So what's the kasha, Rabbi say? How could Rabbi Shimon ben Yehuda say that the ta'us was, and historically we got the story wrong, that Chizkiyahu HaMelech did what? He convinced them to do Pesach Sheni. Pesach Sheni is what? Is 1 day. It doesn't fit into the psukim. The psukim say that they sat there and celebrated Pesach for 7 days. Isn't that a raya brura like the other shitas in the Gemara? That's the Rashas tzarich Ian Gadol on this Gemara. Makes no sense with the psukim in Divrei Yom. No one else thinks of the kash because we don't know the psukim in Divrei Yom, so we're fine. But the Rashash opened up a Divrei Yom and he says this doesn't fit in the pasuk. So it could be that Chizkiyahu HaMelech thought that when is Pesach Sheni? It was a mistake, but when is Pesach Sheni? One day when the Yachid is switched to Pesach Sheni. But when the whole tzibur is switched to Pesach Sheni, so the whole yontif goes with the whole tzibur, and maybe that's what the pshat in the pasuk was. And they taka not only made a mistake legabe the halacha of the hakrava of the carbon Pesach Sheni, they taka made a mistake in the yontif, and they actually celebrated the wrong day. They misunderstood what Pesach Sheni was.
No, Gemara says that his mistake was about nashim. If his nashim were b'chlal or not b'chlal.
Yeah, but that.
Was it the yachid or a rab?
Right, I understand, but Lamaisa he held that the rabbim should go to Pesach Sheni.
No, that's because he held originally that it was a miyut. That was named to Pesach Sheni because nashim were chova. No, mistaken. Was he originally?
You're saying from the Hemshech Gemara when the Gemara is Masbir Reb Shimon ben Yehuda, Shimon Yehuda Reb Shimon ben Shehesi Yisrael last Pesach Sheni. Hechad Amar Rav Ashi Kol Yisrael Mechtzet Mei Mechtzet Tayrim V'Nashin Lashvilas L'Tahirim V'Oitfas Aleim Mei Karsa V'Nashin B'Rishon Chayva to have a miyutim Tmeim miyutim Midchel Pesach Sheni U'B'Soif Savar Nashim B'Rishon Rishus to have Lu Tmeim Ruba V'Ruba Loy Mudcha LePesach. Meaning he knew this. He knew Ruba Loy Midchel LePesach Sheni. Yeah, you're right. He knew Ruba Loy Midchel LePesach Sheni. But his shaila was, how do you cheshbon nashim? So it can't be that he made a mistake in the din of Yachid V'tzibur. Yeah, okay. So the Rashas's kash is back. Yeah, okay. Good. Weiter. So now let's get to let's get to the Gemara. Why would Ibra Shana not be in existent and be a calculation and something significant in the situation when Tumah is in conflict with Carbon Pesach? Amar Rabbi Yehuda. Omer, Ma'arbin Alma Isla Rabbi Yehuda Tumah Tchuye Hibetzibur. Rabbi Yehuda says you could be Ma'abras Shana if Tumah is in conflict with Carbon Pesach. Why? Because the halacha is Tumah Tchuye Hibetzibur. This is a Gemara in Yuma. The Gemara in Yuma has the following question. When you have a situation and you have a Carbon Sibur, and there's a Carbon Sibur and there's a situation where either Rov Yisrael is Tameh, or the Kohanim are all Tmeim, or so then that is a situation, or the Kalim are Tmeim, so then that is a situation that you have to be makar of the Carbon Sibur b'Tumah. So what's the nature of that halacha of Tumah overriding the regular for a Carbon Sibur, allowing the Tumah to exist in the Beis HaMikdash? The Gemara presents two approaches, either Tumah Tchuye b'Tzibur or Tumah Hutra b'Tzibur. The Gemara asks, what's the nafkamina? So the Gemara says the nafkamina is, in order to does a person have to try to avoid tchiyah? Meaning, if there are kohanim tahirim around, do I have to try to make sure that those kohanim tahirim do it? And the Gemara has two approaches. Either, if there are kohanim tahirim in that same mishmar, so then I have to go get the kohanim that are around, wake them up and make sure that they do the avodah, not the kohanim tmeim. And then the Gemara says even a second daya that maybe I need to go to another mishmar in order to get them. There's two levels in the Gemara, two lishonos in the Gemara of how far a person would have to go if Tumah Tchuye b'Tzibur. Okay? But if you hold Tumah Hutra b'Tzibur, says the Gemara, you don't even have to go within the mishmar that you're in. Even if there are Kohanim available in the Beis HaMikdash at that time, the Kohanim Tmeim, Tumah Hutra b'Tzibur, it's as if there's no issue whatsoever. It's Hutar. It's totally mutter, and therefore it's not even a problem. So comes along the Gemara, in our Gemara in Sanhedrin, and quotes another nafkamina. If you hold Tumah Tchuye b'Tzibur, so then you're going to hold what? So then that's a good reason to be Ma'aber. So that's a good reason. We want to avoid. Just like we want to try to get other Kohanim, we want to avoid in this situation as well. Says the Gemara, but it can't be. V'atanya tzitz bein sheyeshno al metzcho bein sheino al metzcho meratze div Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Yehuda oimer oida al metzcho meratze. Eino meda metzcho, eino meratze. The Gemara presents a machlekes in Yuma whether or not the tzitz, in order to what the tzitz did, which was the tzitz was, in addition to this concept of tamid tchuya b'tzibur, the tzitz would be overarching and would apply even to a korban yachid. Even outside of tamid tchuya b'tzibur, korban tzibur, the tzitz was another ability to be meratze, korbanos that were brought b'tumah. So the Gemara says, what? There's a machlekes tanoim, if the tzitz had to be on the head of the Kohen Gadol in order for it to take effect, or the tzitz can be anywhere, even if it's not on the head of the Kohen Gadol. Amar le Rabbi Shimon. So Rabbi Shimon proves that what? That the tzitz has to take effect and work, even if it's not on the head of the Kohen Gadol. What's his proof? Kohen Gadol b'yom HaKippurim yoichiach she'eino al mitzcho u'meratze. So Kohen Gadol Yom Kippur. How do you know the Kohen Gadol Yom Kippur? It's not. There's no tzitz in the Big Day Lavan. When he's going in the Kodesh HaKadoshim to do the avodah with the Big Day Lavan, there's only 4 begadim and one of them is not the tzitz. So therefore, you must know that what? That the tzitz obviously takes effect on the tumah that could potentially happen when he's in the Kodesh HaKadoshim. Amar lo Rabbi Yehuda anach liyom kippurim. So what's Rabbi Yehuda's answer to this? Rabbi Yehuda is the balashita that the tzitz only works if it's al metzcho. Zok the Gemara. Amar lo Rabbi Yehuda hanach liyom kippurim shetuma hutru b'tzibur. Zok Rabbi Yehuda, no. Tumah b'yom kippurim is hutra b'tzibur. So therefore, if it's tumah hutra b'tzibur, so how do we answer the question? You don't need the tzitz. So clearly the Gemara is saying that the machlokes tumah tchuya b'tzibur or hutra b'tzibur for some reason is now going to have ramifications on whether or not I need the tzitz or whether or not I don't need the tzitz. Why should that be? What's the explanation to that? I understand. It's more grave, it's more... How do those two things add up? How does the tzitz relate to hutra, that it's not necessary, and if tumah tchuya, so suddenly we need the tzitz? So I'd like to ask another question. Let's read Rashi's. Rashi says... Tchuya b'tzibur, k'lemer b'koishi, it's the first of the wide lines. The fourth of the wide lines, before the wide lines get skinny. Tchuya b'tzibur, k'lemer b'koishi hutra tumah b'tzibur. V'chol kama de'efshel la'aduri la'asosa b'tara ma'adrinon. As long as you can try and be able to do it b'tara, that's what you should do, because it's really that the isser is still in existence. It's just eased. U'lekach ma'abrin kadesh yasu b'tara, therefore ibra hashana could exist. Tzitz meratze al tumah zvachim lalos l'ratzon. Tzitz allows that now the carbon is now going to be kosher. Bein sheyeshno al metzach kohen gadol b'shas tumah, bein she'eno al metzach meratze. Kohen gadol b'avol l'fnai l'v'nefnim yom ha'kippurim yochicho she'eno lovesh bigdei zav v'im'ira tumah b'kodshim meratze tzitz. That's the Rashi I wanna focus on. Koyin gadol b'voy lefnai v'lefnim b'yom ha'kippurim yachiach she'eno loivesh bigdei zav v'im'ira tumah b'kodshim meratze tzitz. What is the critical point that's necessary for the tzitz? So Rashi over here, Rashi in Yuma, Rashi in many areas of Shas says something fascinating. Im ira tumah bekodshim, the tzitz saves the carbon because at blank shah, there was a tzitz there to save the carbon. What's the word that I'm looking for? What's the word? So I always thought the critical point that the tzitz should be there would be at the time of hakrava b'tumah, when you're doing the avoda. Tumah tchuya b'tzibor means the avodas hatzibor, the tzitz, the shvichas damim, or whatever avoda you're trying to be matir. Yeah, exactly. That's what you have a tzitz for. Look at the sheets that I have. Look at the Yad Ramah. If you look at the middle of the column Dibra Maschal Amar Mar, Yad Ramah points this out in Rashi. The first word of the line is Hakrava Zvachim, and the last two words of Rabbeinu Shlomo. 13 lines down, thank you. Rabbeinu Shlomo Zatzal, Rashi, Perish, Bein sheyesh lo amechzo shel kohen gadol b'shas tumah, ve'eno nira.
What does Rashi say? At Shas Tumah means when we got into an issue. When the Tumah or the item became Tameh, the tzitz was there. That's not the critical point. Ve'eno nira be'enenu. The b'shas Tumah my ritzoy yika. That's not when there's ritzoy. Ritzoy is at the time that the korban is Hutra. Is that there's ritzoy, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is misratze with the korban. The avodah is something that's nitan and that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants. Elam istaber de b'shas hakrova koi. De miratze al hakorban shenitma beratzon. K'dichsiv v'nosa haroin es avoin HaKadoshim. V'garsinim b'psochim al ma'atzitz miratze al adam v'al achilov shenitma bein b'shoig bein b'meiz bein mo'onis bein beratzon. At the time that it's hukrav, the ritzoy tzitz saves the korban. But not at the Shas Tumah. So therefore the Yad Ramah rejects Shitas Rashi and he disagrees with Shitas Rashi. So comes along the Brisker of and he explains Rashi. And he says as follows. Of course Rashi agrees that at the time of Hakrava and the time of Zrikas Hadam, which is the Iker point that there's Ritzoy from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that there has to be a tzitz there. Because you have to be misratza, the avoda, like the Yad Ramah points out. But says the Brisker of, Rashi held, that's insufficient. That's not the only time I need ritzoy tzitz. I also need ritzoy tzitz when? At the time that the dam, or the item that's problematic, became tameh itself. Why is that so? Explains the Brisker of, because very nice, you now have some sort of gadget, a tzitz, that now says the korban is now an avoida b'tumah is okay. But I have another issue. I don't care about the maisa avoida, I care about the actual dam that has dichuy on it. There is a concept la'alacha that the cheftza of the korban becomes invalid even before the avoda starts. Let's say this is something that we talked about, I believe, before Slichas last year. We discussed the fact that we're d'chuyim. We can't do the avodah. We're in a status that we're unacceptable. We're invalid. This is a halacha that applies to karbanos if they're a balmum, that they're invalid even when the blemish goes away. If it was a real serious blemish, that it was a mum kavua, the Gemara says it's dachuy. It's not acceptable. Ad Kedei Kach, the Gemara in Sukkah even applies this to mitzvahs. If you have a hadas that was invalid during Yontif, and now suddenly the berries fell off, so the Gemara says, do you say dichu yetzah mitzvahs? Do you not say dichu yetzah mitzvahs? Gemara applies this to the mizbeach, that if the mizbeach was chipped at the time that the shchitas hakorban happened, so then do you say dichoy by the korban? Dichoy means it's pushed away. The actual cheftza of the korban was invalid. So says the Brisker of, very nice that you now, the Yad Ramah, you solved the problem, that the Maisa Avoda is now Nisratza from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and we ignore that the Maisa Avoda was B'tumah because the Ritzoy Tzitz erases that Maisa Avoda. But what? There's another problem here. The Cheftza is an invalid Cheftza. The Dam is not Dam. Dam B'tumah is Dam Shehudcha. Dam Shehudcha is not acceptable to the Mizbeach. No, Maishna if it's Nitmes, Maishna if the Bailim died. If the Bailim died, let's say if a korban chatas, you can't spill that blood onto the Mizbeach. That's Dichuy. There's no Bailim on that. There's many different reasons why Dam would be unacceptable and invalid. Says the Brisker of, that's why Rashi says, no! The Ritzuy Atzitz also applies at the Shas Tumah, that it doesn't even chal onto the Dam, and the Dam stays Dam Kodshim, and it stays acceptable, and it doesn't have a psul of Dichoy. It's not like all those other situations that the Dam actually becomes invalid. So the Ritzuy Tzitz has a double-prong approach. It has to come into existence at 2 points, and it's not sufficient what the Yad Ramah said that it's only at the Shas Avoda. This Brisker of, what? I don't know. Unless the Yad Ramah understands that included in the Shas Avoda is implicit that we don't care about Dichoy, but Rashi clearly held that wasn't the case, and you need a separate stage of Ritzoy from the Tzitz in order to do that. But otherwise, how the Yad Ramah would get around Dichoy, it's a Bam Kasha. But what the Brisker Rav introduces is something that I heard once from Rabbi Shechter, and I found it in Rabbi Zalman Meltzer, in his Chidushim and Even Ezel, that he points this out in the Chidush of the Rambam, which really explains our entire sugya. What I asked before is, why is it that if you hold, the machshava of the Gemara is that if you hold Tumah's Tchuya B'tzibur, so then you need the tzitz, and it must be that the tzitz works without being on the Meitzach, because otherwise what are you going to do with Yom Kippur, right? Says Rabbi Yehuda, don't ask me kashas. I hold that the tzitz only works on the Meitzach, and how do I explain away Yom Kippur? Because there on Yom Kippur, Tumah is Hutra B'tzibur. Good? Why should that be? What's the difference? So explains Rabbi Zalman that there are two issues going on with every Tumah B'tzibur. On the one hand, there's Tumah B'tzibur, that there's the Isser to be Makriv B'tzibur. So what happens? There's a halacha that was Nischadsha from Pesach Sheni that tells me that when the Tzibur is all Tameh, so Tumah Tchuya B'tzibur. That's the makar that Tumah is Tchuya B'tzibur. So Tumah Tchuya B'tzibur, so what is Tchiya? Tchiya takes away what? Like Esei Deicha Loisase. It takes away the Isser. But what? But the Tumah, if the Tumah is still in existence, and it's just taking away the Isser that could usually exist when you're Makar of B'tumah, I have a second issue over here, says Rabbi Zalman. There's a psul. You can't just give me Tchiyas over here. Don't just tell me Tchiyas over here. I can't just work with the rules and regulations of Esei Doicha Leisase or Tumah Doicha Isser Lahakriv B'tumah, because what? I have a psul over here. The carbon is puzzle. Just like similar to what the Brisker Rav is explaining to me, Yashiv Rashi. So what do I do with the psul? So comes along Reb Shimon and holds, Tumah Tchuya B'tzibur. The Tumah is existent when it comes to Tzibur. So that might take care of the Isser. It's Madche the Isser. Esei Doicha Loisase or Tumah Doicha Es HaIsser Shalak Rava B'tumah. But what takes care of the psul? Rabbi say, what takes care of the psul? Ritzui tzitz. That's why I need the tzitz there. The tzitz is there to now remove the psul that should have been in existence. Why? Because I hold the tumah is there. I hold tumah is only tchuya b'tzibur. And in klape the yisr, it could be madche. But tchuya can't take care of psulim, says Rabbi Zalman. Mashenkein, if I hold tumah is hutra b'tzibur. So when it comes to a korban tzibur, it's as if what? I don't even have to kvetch. I don't even have to search around for kohanim. I don't even have to look around. I could hold la'alocha, I could hold tumah sutra b'tzibur. It's as if the tumah is non-existent. So now the Gemara says, suddenly, I don't need the ritzoi tzitz. Why not, we asked? Why don't you need the ritzoi tzitz? Because there's no psul! Because the Isser is gone and there's no psul over here because it's non-existent. So that's the cheshbon of the Gemara. So if you hold Tumah Tchuya B'tzibur, you need two things. You need to, one, be mata the Isser through Tumah Tchuya B'tzibur, and you also need to take care of the psul that the korban is hukar of B'tumah. Good. So Rabbi Isai, with the time that we have left, we have to introduce Shitas HaRambam. So I thought it was kedai maybe to just quote a few of the Rambams to get a little bit of understanding of what the klalim are for Tumah Hutra B'tzibur, Tumah Tchuya B'tzibur. First of all, it's very important. This is probably the most important klal that will come out of this year, even though it's not a lamdish klal. What Taisus points out on Yud Beis and Beis basically is that anyone who quotes this halacha of Tumah Hutra or Tchuya B'tzibur, it's a misnomer. It's incorrect. It has nothing to do with whether or not the korban is a public korban or a private korban. Why? I'll give you a raya. Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur, the Gemara is discussing what is the halacha when the Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur becomes tameh. Right? Half of the korbanos that we're dealing with on Yom Kippur are what? Are korban yachids. Parish shel Kohen Gadol, the ayil shel Kohen Gadol. Those are called all korban yachids. He's doing it al tzibur. Yeah, that's true. But it's still halacha. It's a korban yachid. It's a korban yachid. You should all ask. It shouldn't be hukar b'tzibur. So what's with the Kohen Gadol? Give you another kasha. What are we talking about over here, Rabbi say? Which korban are we talking about over here? Korban Pesach. And we're saying Tumah Tchuya B'tzibur, Hutra B'tzibur. What type of korban is a korban Pesach? Korban Pesach is a Korban Yachid. And yet what? The Gemara is discussing Tumah Hutra B'tzibur, Tumah Tchuya B'tzibur. So the whole concept of tzibur is really, I don't know why, it's a mistake. It's not really correct. It happens to be that most of these karbanos that are doche tumah happen to be karbanos tzibur, so therefore we call it tumah tchuya b'tzibur. So what is it based on, Rabbi Yisai? Probably one of the most important taisis that we're going to see. It says taisis, second taisis on the daf, ein hadavar toloi b'tzibur. Has nothing to do with being a carbon tzibur or a carbon yachid. Kedamrinu meperakot tziyoloi. Shari paryo mekibur mechadvite kohen gadol pesach the carbon yachid. I can give you list you all these cases that the Gemara discusses carbon tzibur, tumah tzibur, and they're all carbon yachids. V'doichen Shabbos of tumah paralam davar shel tzibur b'siyar b'rizar v'chagigah the carbon tzibur him, and also works in the opposite direction. Rabbi Yisai, I can give you a lot of cases like a par kohen gadol or sireh b'rizara that the tzibur brings. That what? Why? Because Bezdin told them to be Oived Avodah Zarah, or Bezdin told them to do a Chi of Chatas, right? And then they have to bring a carbon tzibur. Is that Kavu Zman? Is there a specific Zman that they have to bring it? No. After the Aveir, they bring it. The halacha is over there, even though it's a carbon tzibur, it's not Deiche Tumah. Says the Tosfos, the klal is not carbon Yachid versus carbon tzibur, but rather it's Kavu Zman or Ein Kavu Zman. Carbon Pesach has a Zman. Parashal Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur has a Zman Kavua. If the carbon has a Zman Kavua, that is the factor that will now determine whether or not Tumah will be Doiche B'tzibur or not. But it has nothing to do with being a carbon tzibur. So Rabbi Yisai, now we get to the Rambams. Before I get to the Rambam, I want to say it very quickly. I don't have time to get into it. There's a big taisus in Yuma, Davav and Beis, that's very problematic based on our taisus and based on the analysis we just said. Taisus says there's a stira in Abaye and Rava. Abaye and Rava is presented in that Gemara that Tumah is Tchuya B'tzibur, is Hutra B'tzibur. Right? If you look at the taisus on the top of the daf. Amar Rav Tachlima B'shmei de Rava, Zoysa Meres Tumah Hutra B'tzibur. Taisus asks a kasha, but elsewhere in Shas, Rava is quoted as holding Tumah Tchuya B'tzibur. So it's a contradiction in Rava. So it says Tosfos, not a contradiction. Very simple teretz. When it's a real carbon tzibur, so then Rava holds what? Tumah Hutra B'tzibur. But when it's really a carbon yachid, but it's only Kavua Lozman, so then Rava holds Tumah Tchuya B'tzibur. That's what Tosfos says in the first Tosfos. So clearly, Tosfos is arguing with what I just said. Tosfos is saying that it's not totally based on Kavul Ozman or not Kavul Ozman, and Rava himself, whether or not it'll be Hutra or Tchuya, will now be based on whether or not this is a real carbon tzibur. So Tosfos is saying carbon tzibur is really a factor. Only by a carbon tzibur could you have the concept, says Tosfos, of Tumah Hutra B'tzibur. But if it's not a carbon tzibur, if it's like carbon Pesach, then you can't have Tumah Hutra B'tzibur. Rabbi Yisai asked the Shara Melech, asked the Shagas Aryeh, this Tosfos is against our Gemara. Our Gemara is talking about what? Carbon Pesach, which is a carbon yachid, and the Gemara entertains the classic machlokes of Tumah Hutra B'tzibur, Tumah Tchuya B'tzibur. This Tosfos is a big, big problem, and therefore the Achronim have to stand on their head in order to explain Shitas HaTosfos. So that's just to keep in mind in terms of whether or not it means tzibur or yachid or it means kavul zman. A very, very difficult Tosfos in Yuma, how he deals with that and how you answer and resolve this question. So comes along the Rambam and says, Halacha Ches. In Bias Mikdash Perek Dalet is where he brings all the halachas that we've been discussing. Ein hatzitz meratze ela bizman shu al metzchay, shenemar v'hoya al metzcha tamid, l'ratzon lehem lifnei Hashem. Then the Rambam in Halacha Tes says, Kol korban she'en kavul zman, or again the Rambam says it's totally on kavul zman or not kavul zman, exactly like Tosfos Halacha Yud, Kol korban tatzibur kavul zman, fichach doyich menas Shabbos v'esatumah v'sameis. Good question. Why does the Rambam say korbanos tzibur? Very good question. Rabbi Aryeh Leib Malin has a whole piece to try to explain why the Rambam left in korbanos tzibur, but the ikar is that it's kavul lemzman. Kol korban me'em shekar b'tumah ino nechal emakdimer mener dvarim. Even though you can have the halacha of tumah tchuya b'tzibur, that doesn't help that you can now eat the carbon. You're not able to eat the carbon is burnt, and what usually is eaten by either the Bailam or the Kohanim, it is not eaten when it's a carbon that was Hutra B'tumah, with one exception. Which is the exception, Rabbi Yisai? Carbon Pesach. Why? Because the Mishnah says, carbon Pesach, Iker la'achila huba. It has to override the Tumah even for Achila, because the carbon Pesach is brought for purposes of Achila. Good. Now the Rambam says in Halacha Yud Beis, Ketzad udochas hatumah. What's the scenario? Higias mano sh'osar carbon vayurov kol shemakriven oso tumah lemeis. If the zman of the carbon exists, again, because it's kavua lo zman, it has to be a set time, and rov of Am Yisrael is mace, Oshaya kol tarim, or all of Am Yisrael was tar, but what? Vayah kohanim makriven tmeim lemeis. You see the Rambam, which the Rambam is going to say explicitly, Tumah tchuya b'tzibur only applies to tumas mace. Doesn't apply to the other tumas. Zav, and Nidas, all those tumas, it doesn't apply to. So the Rambam says, what happens if either all the Kohanim are tamei or all of Am Yisrael is tamei? Oshaya elu tarim, or both are tamei, are tahar. Vayu klei asharis tmeim lemeis, but the klei sharis, the vessels, are tamei lemeis. That all is tumah tchuy b'tzir. Hayreze yaseh b'tumah v'yisaskabo atmeim v'atarim ke'echad v'yikansu kul nazara. That is when tumah overrides the akrava, and we're going to be makriv tumah. Aval atmeim b'tumah acheres. Other types of tumah, says the Rambam, that is not where our halacha of tumah d'chuy b'tzibur applies, only tamei mes. Next halacha. Let's skip that halacha. Yudalid, hoya miktas beis av tmein u miktasam tahirim, aval pisharum in tmei mes lo yakriva ela tahirim. Says the Rambam, since I paskin what? Tumah what? T'chuya. So therefore, I'm quoting the Gemara in Yuma that when you can find a tahar person, should try to find a tahar person. Hayakol beis av tamei meis. If the whole beis av, the whole group is tamei, yaviu beis av acher. You should even go to another beis av. Hayakol mishmaris tamei meis, machzirin al mishmaris acheres. You should even get another mishmar, which I don't think is mafurish in the Gemara. But if most of the Kohanim in Yerushalayim are tamei, even though what? I could still get another, I know where another Kohen lives in Yerushalayim, says the Rambam, that far you don't have to go. Why? Where does the Rambam get this limitation? If Tumah T'chuya b'tzibur, and I know on Rehov Najara I can find, a guy in Givat Shaul that can do a betara, why aren't I mechuyev to do that? You did it you schlepped me out to get another Beis Av, you schlepped me out to get another Mishmeres. Mipnei ma mechzirin al tar mi Beis Av achers, the halacha tesvav, mipnei sha'tumah lo hutra b'tzibur, that's where the Rambam says beferish. And everything that I said that you have to schlep out is why? Because Tumah is not Hutra, but Tumah is T'chuya. The Rambam is very problematic. Not only do the Rambam just give us a lot of background, but the Rambam is very problematic. Let's say again. The Rambam just told us what? Tumah is T'chuya b'tzibur, right? The Rambam says in halacha, the top halacha, ches, the first halacha we read, V'ein hatzitz meratze, ela bizman shehu al mitzcha. So the Rambam holds the tzitz has to be on your forehead, and the Rambam also paskins Tumah is T'chuya b'tzibur. Let's go back to the Gemara. Our Gemara said that there was machlekes Rabbi Shimon Rabbi Yehuda. When the tzitz is on the forehead of the Kohen Gadol, is that the only time that the tzitz is meratzeh? Or even if it's off the forehead? Rabbi Shimon says it has to be even if it's off the forehead. What's my proof? Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur. The Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur doesn't have the tzitz on his head, and there's big day kuna, and there's 4 begadim levanim, and yet what? If Tumah happens, it's tar. How? Must be that the tzitz has effect, even if it's not on his metzach, even if it's not on his forehead. Says the Gemara, no! Rabbi Shimon, you're wrong. Rabbi Yehuda holds what? Tumah hutra b'tzibor. Right? Which means what? If you hold Tumah t'chuya b'tzibor, where does the tzitz have to be? No. Anywhere. Let's go back to the Rambam. The Rambam halacha ches says, "Ve'ein hatzitz b'ratze ela bizman shual metzcha." The Rambam holds it has to be on his forehead. If I would just have that halacha ches, I would already know how the Rambam paskins if tumah t'chuya or hutra b'tzibur. What should be the halacha based on our Gemara? If it's eino al metzcha, it should be hutra, because otherwise you're not going to have a way to explain Yom Kippur. And yet the Rambam what? The Rambam says you have to schlep out. Beis Havacher, go to another Mishmeres. The Rambam paskins Tumah Tchuyi B'tzibur, and he still paskins Eino Ela Mitzcho. Ask the Marikur, because the Rambam's against the Gemara. The Mamam's against the Gemara, the whole cheshbon doesn't work. So Rabbi said we don't have time to go into it. But this is a question that the Gedolim tried to struggle to answer. So some answers, I'm just going to rattle off a few answers. The Amudei Or tried to answer that maybe the Rambam argued with this Gemara on a very simple fact. What are you dealing with on Kohen Gadol and Yom Kippur? Dam of the Korban, the Ketores. Maybe the Rambam Paskins in Hilchos Tumah that Dam Kodshim is not Mekabel Tumah based on a Gemara in Psachim. So maybe that was the machlokes. The Gemara thought that the Dam that you were dealing with is Mekabel Tumah, and there's going to be a problem when the Kohen Gadol is in the Kodesh HaKadoshim. But what? The Rambam was not of that opinion, and therefore the Rambam thought there wouldn't be a problem when it comes to the Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur. Or it could just be the Rambam held that by definition, the fact that when it comes to Yom Kippur, the Torah does not include the tzitz in the begadim, so maybe the Rambam holds, every other day of the year, the halacha is Tumah Tchuyi B'tzibur, and you need the tzitz. There's one exception to the rule. It's Yom Kippur. Because Yom Kippur implicitly in that halacha is the one exception to the rule that Tumah is Hutra B'tzibur when it comes to the Avodah on Yom Kippur. And in my opinion, if that's the analysis in the Rambam, that's something that's very settling when we go in before the Avodah on Yom Kippur. Kodesh Baruch Hu says really the rest of the year, Tumah is Tchuyi B'tzibur. I don't like to accept Avaryanim. I don't like to accept Shmutz into my Beis HaKnesses and into my Avodah, and this is a real problem. Comes one day a year, the Avodah on Yom Kippur, and the Torah says, Tumah Hutra B'tzibur. I am now going to focus and going to approach the tumah that you have on your body, and it's as if it's mamish non-existence. It's mamish tumah hutra b'tzibur. I don't even need the tzitz, and you can have a full avodah that doesn't even have the tzitz on you.